Welcome back to Searching for Scary. Sorry, it's been a little bit longer than I wanted it to be as far as my time off, but I am back today with something I think you will find very interesting if you are a horror lover or just a weirdo like me. So today is going to be a little bit different. Usually, if this is your first time to the channel, I give you guys a book, a comic book, and a movie recommendation so that you can, have something scary. And if you don't typically check out, horror books, you have something to check out. Or if you don't look at horror comic books, you have something a little bit different than just, hey, this movie's really good. Because I know there's a million other channels, a million other ways for you to find out what good horror movies are out there. Secondly, I do try to bring you guys something a little bit off the beaten trail, so you're not just having to watch the same 4 movies that everybody else is recommending. So hopefully that's a good preface. But for today, like I said, it is a little bit different. Today is going to be just 2 books, no movies, no comic books. It's 2 books that are considered occult books. These are things that if you go to like a library, I don't even know if they would have it at a library, but if you go to like a rare bookstore or even like a half-price book, this is going to either be in the occult section or the religious section. It's not going to be like in fiction or horror. So I've read these books. I think they're really good, and these are quote unquote non-fiction, and so it's really good. And I'm going to give you a little bit of detail about each book, and then there is a third book that I could not find a picture of, and I apologize, but I'm going to give you the title of that anyways, or at least what I recall as the title, and hopefully you can maybe have a little more luck than I did as far as finding it. So to get started, and this is probably the most recent book, it's called An Exorcist Tells His Story by Gabriel Amorth, or Amroth. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But essentially it is a Father Amorth, and he is Italian, and so he actually talks about his experiences with exorcism. So he himself is an exorcist, but he also trained and kind of, you don't just go to the church one day and say, hey, I want to take out demons. There was like a process. You have to become a priest first. You have to go through your whole like priesthood issue first. Then you have to get recommended, and you have to have like a cardinal essentially bring up the topic for you. And I don't know if it goes directly to the Pope, but it goes pretty high up the ladder before you can get approved to even start trying to become an exorcist. So this is not something that's taken lightly, and is also the reason why most churches, like if you are a church-going person, your church probably doesn't have an exorcist. You would probably, if you were like, hey, I want an exorcist, you'd have to go to your priest, kind of get him to give you the green light first, which is not going to be easy. And then he has to reach out to the Catholic Church to find the closest exorcist. And then they have to approve it to get him to your area. And then he has to go to your, wherever you're at, wherever you think that this possession is taking place. And then he has to approve even doing it, really anything beyond just a simple blessing. So there's a lot that goes into it. And the reason I'm bringing this book up and the reason I think it's really good is, one, even if you are not a religious person, it is very interesting to just know the process that they go through to determine that someone is possessed. And so I think a lot of times, especially with like movies or just generic stories, people write off possessions or they try to maybe like rationalize a possession and just saying, oh, well, that's like some sort of mental disorder. Somebody just they should have had a psychologist and not or a therapist they need to see, not an exorcist. And I've even heard other people say, oh, well, once you bring in the exorcist, once you bring in religion, now you're just affirming someone's like mental issue, and now you're giving them proof that what they're thinking is true. And I totally get that, and honestly, I myself thought that way not too long ago, but after reading this book, I understand a lot more about what the church does to prevent itself from kind of stepping on the toes of any sort of like mental issue. So one thing, for example, is the church has been aware of, and even like sent people to receive mental help since the 1400s. So this is not something where like, hey, well, we always just thought it was a demon. No, like apparently, according to Father Amworth and just other, you know, literature that I've read, the church has been aware of mental issues, mental disabilities since the 1400s. So I know a lot of people out there and a lot of just, like generic guy on the couch sees some sort of exorcism movie and it's like, no, that's some sort of mental issue. Well, they do their best to make sure that that's not the case. Also, for the most part, at least from what he says in this book, they get people from psychiatrists and from therapists. They get recommended to see so and so because they've been going to therapy for several years and nothing has been helping. They haven't made any progress. Or if this person is brand new to them and they have never seen some sort of medical doctor, whether it's psychiatrist or actual, like your primary care physician, they will refer them there first, and they will actually even bring psychiatrists with them for exorcisms, specifically for that reason. But I know I'm getting kind of off topic here because that's what all I've talked about is really just the first like 2 or 3 chapters of this book. He goes into the ritual that they have with exorcisms and what needs to be done and why they do certain things. So even if you've just seen like The Exorcist, you kind of know, hey, a priest doesn't just come in here and start shouting and screaming. They have like a process that they go through. They need to read certain things. They need to have somebody bless them. They need to have, certain items or holy items, holy water, things like that. And so he goes through each step and what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. One of the things I found really interesting is he talks about the first portion of the ritual is always done in Latin. And it's done in Latin, again, going back to the mental issue, so that the person receiving this blessing is not, they're not taking it as anything other than maybe just a blessing. But there's certain words, certain incantations that they're saying in Latin that if there is truly a demonic possession or something that is paranormal, they're going to get a reaction. Because if you come into my house and start talking to me in Latin, I'm going to look at you with a blank face and be like, what are you saying exactly? And that's kind of what they expect for the most part. And so he even says only 5% of people who call him are actually possessed, but it is real. It does happen. So I don't want to ruin too much more of it. I think you probably get the gist of this book. It's really, really good though. Like I said, even if it is just strictly for your own knowledge, for your information, if you're maybe interested in just like what exactly is going on with the church or what's their ritual, definitely get this book. I will tell you, if you're a different religion, I myself kind of find myself, I don't want to say agnostic, but I don't just stick to one religion. I'm not just like Christian. I kind of believe in all of them as far as like the main religions, whether that's Judaism or Islam. They to me, it's all kind of all books of a bigger picture. That being said, if you are really practicing one faith, there are some things in this book that are going to maybe kind of piss you off. And it's mainly like him saying that, the Catholic Church is the only way to go for exorcism. They're the only one that has it done the right way. And that's, I just kind of read it and kept going. So if you can get past that, definitely give this book a look. It is like $7. So it's not, again, I try to keep your budget in mind. Shouldn't break the bank on this one. It is on Amazon even. So, pay the $7. You get the book in like 3 days at the most. It's really good. It's not a super long book. And you don't have to like read it all in one sitting either. If there's just certain, things you want to learn from it, certain maybe articles you want to read, you can do that too. This isn't like something you're going to have a test on. You can read bits and pieces of it and completely be fine with whatever you take away from it. Let's move on now. Next book is, I guess the way I pronounce it is Demonology, and that kind of presents a problem when I was trying to find this picture. So I read this book probably about 8 years ago at this point. It was written by King James I. It was actually written in 1597, and it was reprinted when he took the throne, which I believe was like in 1604. But the reason I bring that up is because this book is called Demonology, but it doesn't focus on like demons, quote unquote, so much. It's actually about witchcraft, and specifically, this book was written after taking the accounts of witches that were basically tortured into giving them what information they wanted. So, as you can imagine, back in 1597, witchcraft or claiming somebody was a witch was a lot more standard practice than it would be today. And so what they did is they would capture these women, and yes, it was predominantly women that said that they were witches, or they were known to be witches, or at least thought to be witches, and they would basically torture them and find out how they became witches, what happened, what did you do, what kind of powers do you have, all that kind of stuff. And so the book itself is interesting for a whole bunch of reasons, but one, again, just going strictly to the historical portion of it, just finding out what exactly they thought was like groundbreaking at that time. I know one of the passages in here talks about washing your hands in the morning and that being like a way to ward off evil, which I read that and I was like, well, okay. Now we would say, yeah, washing your hands is probably just a way to not get sick. And so they kind of equated that with, well, if you wash your hands in the morning and you pray in the morning, then when you leave your house, you're not susceptible to different like spells that a witch would cast. When today we would probably be like, yeah, you're just washing your hands more, dude, so you're not getting sick. It doesn't have to involve demons and witches. So there's some stuff like that I think is just really like, it's good to know, especially when you go back and watch movies like The Witch, and even to a lesser extent a movie like The Autopsy of Jane Doe. To get that movie and to really understand all the references they're making and kind of like why it is as good as it is, you have to read this book. You can like the movie without it, but when you read this book, I think you'll really understand more of what was done to these women that people thought were witches, and also kind of what the different rituals that they would have to go through to try and maybe like rebaptize them, bring them back into the good graces of the Lord, all that kind of stuff. So that's one part of it, is really just finding out what these people did, what they did to the women, and kind of what, again, they thought was like, spells or incantations that we today would be like, okay, yeah, that's just science. But secondly, there's a lot of stuff in here that talks about like how witches get their power and what witches need to do in order to maintain their power and to stay in the good graces of like the devil or the demon that gave them their power, and what it costs. And while a lot of that stuff, I'm sure if I was tortured, I'd tell you whatever you want me to tell you too. But while a lot of that stuff seems like, okay, they're just saying this because they were, getting beat up or whatever, I think a lot of it is really founds our basis of witches today, and like what we think is witchcraft, or what we think witches do, and what they have power to do. And I'll be honest with you, and I might sound crazy, but I know that witches exist today, and not in like the Wizard of Oz, like green with the big nose kind of witch. I mean, people who practice witchcraft. And I say that because with the area that I'm in, which is in Texas, there are at least 10 different, what we call in Spanish, botanicas, which is basically like stores that sell things for, quote unquote witchcraft, whether that's black magic or white magic, that's up to the user, but that's what it is. And so whether these spells or incantations work or not, it's besides the point. The fact is, I know that there's people out there that are practicing it. I've been to these stores, and it's not like an empty store where it's just like one guy sitting in the corner. No, these things they're pretty busy. There's a lot of people going in there, a lot of people buying things to use in different like practices, and so they're out there. And this book really explains where these traditions and rituals come from, what they are hoping to accomplish by doing certain things, and also what demons would request or would charge to get this power of being a witch. And so, again, whether you want to believe it or not, that's up to you. But the factual portion in here, as far as what people did to other people, is very intriguing and interesting. But secondly, finding out more about witches, and so whether you want to use that information going into like movies and comic books and things that are more for entertainment value, or you want to take that information to write like your own books or to learn about witchcraft or practice witchcraft, that's up to you. But either way, this book is definitely worth it. The price really varies on this thing, and so sometimes I've seen it for like $12.99 on Amazon. Other times I've seen it for like $25. It really just depends where you get it from, and because there's not a lot of these books floating around out there, there's not like a set price. So it's really just a matter of where you buy it from and what that buyer or what that seller bought it for. So keep your eyes open if you're interested in this book. I can't really, for both of these, I really can't link a lot to it. I would tell you check Amazon first, and you probably find one, and it's just going to be a matter of what price it is. Lastly, though, and this is a book I've looked at, and I tell you right now, I wasn't able to totally read it because it's a really hard read, and there's not even a picture of it. So I apologize again. I'm just going to go over this book really quickly, and even the title, and I apologize. I know this is like such a general review or request here, but if you get a chance, Google nun possessed by demon exorcism, and it was in the 1200s. So I know there's a lot of stuff that's going to pop up from like the 1950s because there's like a movie coming out or something. It's not that one. This is, the title itself is really, really long. It's like an Old English. It's like the nun who was possessed by so and so that was in exorcised by this other guy. So it's literally like a paragraph long title. It's a huge title, and I had this book at one point and I sold it because it was just so hard to read. So I'll give you the quick synopsis of it, and if you get a chance, I would say probably check Wikipedia instead of trying to read this thing. So it was written in the 1200s by exactly what it sounds like. It was a priest who was giving an exorcism to a nun. The nun had become possessed. They had gone through all the rituals and decided that yes, she was indeed possessed, and she was possessed by like a high-level demon. So the priest is not just trying to exorcise her, he's trying to get information out of the demon to set forth exorcism rites and rituals. Because even back in the 1200s, the ritual of exorcism wasn't like set in stone. There wasn't something already in place. So this priest is trying to find out, hey, like, what can we do? What are you weak against, basically? And the demon's giving him this like big runaround, and like, well, we don't like this, I don't like that, stop doing this to me. And really all the priest knew was like, let's just keep saying Jesus and say under his power you have to go, and the demon will react to it. So it's really good, but like I said, it's written in Old English. It's really old, and it looks like someone just took a copy of the original book and then photocopied each page. So if you can, look for it on Wikipedia, just to get a quick like review of what it was about. It's really good. Obviously it's free if you can find the review. But again, thank you guys for checking out Searching for Scary. I will be back at the end of this week with my regular comic book and movie review of all for horror movies and recommendations, of course. So have a great week. Speak to you soon. Thank you again. Have a great day.